June 13, 2025. A night that will forever be seared into memory. Without any warning, the skies over Tel Aviv and Jerusalem just exploded. This wasn't some far-off threat anymore. This was the harsh reality of modern war, landing right in the heart of two of the Middle East's most iconic cities. Explosions ripped through the darkness, air raid sirens screamed, and a chilling truth settled in. Iran had unleashed a massive, direct missile attack on Israel. The unthinkable happens attack confirmation. In initial reports, it started with scattered reports, anxious posts on social media. Then, it quickly became a terrifying reality. Iran, in a move that was both bold and utterly unprecedented, had just launched a barrage of ballistic missiles and drones aimed straight at the heart of Israel. Just moments after the first missiles hit, the Israel Defense Forces confirmed it. The nation was under attack. This was direct payback for Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities and military leaders, strikes that had happened only hours before. Tehran called this retaliation Operation True Promise 3, and it marked a horrifying new chapter in the long, simmering shadow war between these two powers. The first news coming out of Tel Aviv? Pure chaos. We heard about multiple missile impacts right across the sprawling coastal city. Tel Aviv, the vibrant hub of Israeli business and culture, was suddenly on the front line. You can imagine, emergency services were instantly swamped, racing towards smoke plumes and the scenes of terrible explosions. Jerusalem, a city sacred to three faiths, was also in the crosshairs. Early on, it seemed like there were fewer direct hits in the really crowded parts of Jerusalem compared to Tel Aviv, but the sound of sirens and distant booms was enough to send people scrambling for safety. Their sense of security? Gone. The Israeli military was blunt. Civilians needed to stay in bomb shelters. A stark warning of just how dangerous things had become. Operation True Promise 3. The retaliation unfolds. It didn't take long for Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, to say, yes, that was us. They went on state media, declaring, Operation True Promise 3. A crushing, precise response. A response to what they called Israel's assault and aggressive action, specifically mentioning those earlier strikes that reportedly killed senior Iranian military commanders, nuclear scientists, and civilians. This wasn't the first Operation True Promise. There was one in April 2024 and a second in October 2024, but this third one? It was on a whole different level. Iran made it clear. They were aiming for dozens of sites, military centers, and air bases of the usurping Zionist regime in the occupied territories. They even announced the launch was carried out with the sacred code, Ya Ali ibn Abi Talib, on the blessed night of Eid al-Qadr. This really framed the attack in religious and nationalistic terms. So, this wasn't just about military targets. It was a loud, clear message of defiance, a promise of revenge sent straight to Israel's biggest cities. We're talking over 150 ballistic missiles and more than 100 drones, a massive show of force designed to completely overwhelm Israel's defenses. Section 3. Skies over Israel. The barrage and the defense. Picture this. Iranian missiles and drones are filling the night sky. Israel's famous multi-layered air defense system? It's facing its biggest test ever. You've got the Iron Dome, built for short-range rockets, working alongside David's Sling for medium-range threats, and the Arrow system for long-range ballistic missiles. People on the ground were seeing it, filming it, eerie streaks of interceptor missiles shooting upwards, then these fleeting bursts of light as they hit their targets. You'd hear the boom of a successful interception, quickly followed by the terrifying sound of a missile that actually got through. But the sheer number of missiles Iran threw at them was a huge problem. The IDF said they managed to stop most of them, but a good number still made it through, especially around Tel Aviv. And it wasn't just one wave. Iranian media reported a second, even a third wave, all designed to just swamp Israel's defenses. We also heard that U.S. forces in the region helped knock down some of those incoming missiles, showing just how quickly this became an international crisis. The sky over Israel literally became a battlefield. A terrifying fight between offense and defense, with millions of lives just hanging in the balance. Tel Aviv under fire, damage and casualties. Tel Aviv really took the hardest hit from Operation True Promise 3. We saw reports, and verified videos too, showing some serious destruction. At least one high-rise building in central Tel Aviv was hit. Flames and smoke were just pouring out of it. The Tel Aviv district police commander called it a major incident, with impacts all over, and confirmed rescuers were trying to get people out of damaged buildings and shelters. Israeli media used the words, unprecedented destruction, for the greater Tel Aviv area. We're talking dozens of buildings and cars damaged or totally destroyed, either by direct hits or by debris falling from those mid-air interceptions. And then, the human cost. It became clear pretty quickly. Megan David Adam, the emergency service, said 21 people were injured in Tel Aviv alone, 2 of them seriously. Tragically, we also heard reports of at least 3 deaths across Israel because of these attacks. One woman reportedly died in Ramat Gan, near Tel Aviv, when her apartment building took catastrophic damage. Imagine, sirens just wailing for hours, the soundtrack to a terrifying night as missiles hit military sites and, yes, civilian areas too, indiscriminately. The IDF headquarters in the Kiryat district was apparently close to one of the impacts. For people in Tel Aviv, a city known for its vibrant, fast life, the psychological trauma is just immense. Jerusalem in the crosshairs, fear and fortitude. Tel Aviv might have seen more direct hits, but Jerusalem definitely wasn't spared the terror of Iran's assault. Explosions lit up the sky over the ancient city, shaking buildings and sending sheer panic through its diverse neighborhoods. Those air raid sirens? They echoed off ancient stones and modern buildings, a truly chilling sound, forcing everyone into shelters. Now, we didn't get immediate reports of mass casualties from direct hits in Jerusalem's crowded areas, but the threat felt incredibly real, and the fear was intense. The city's air defenses were working, Iron Dome trying to knock out threats aimed at the capital. Think about the psychological hit on everyone in Jerusalem, Jews, Muslims, Christians. It was profound. Attacking Jerusalem, a city so deeply important to billions around the world, just added another really troubling layer to this whole escalating mess. Israeli media did report that the fighting over Jerusalem got more intense, with explosions and interceptors flying. They also said Iran's attacks caused some structural damage and hurt about 20 people in the Jerusalem area, though the details were a bit sketchier than what we heard from Tel Aviv. The human cost stories from the ground. It's easy to talk about missile numbers and damaged buildings, but what about the people? That's where the real cost of this attack lies. Imagine families in Tel Aviv, huddled in their safe rooms, listening to explosions like some terrifying countdown to who knows what. Emergency crews, already pushed to their limits, were absolute heroes, pulling people from rubble, treating the injured right in the middle of the chaos. We heard awful stories. Near misses, homes shaking like crazy, the sharp smell of smoke everywhere. And the psychological damage, especially for kids and older folks? That's a wound that's going to take a very long time to heal. This attack turned everyday life upside down. Public transport stopped, schools and businesses closed up. A deep sense of fear just settled over everything. For a lot of Israelis, having major cities hit like this brought the conflict home in a way that the fighting near the borders, or attacks with less powerful weapons, never really had. The constant alerts, scrambling to shelters, never knowing where the next missile might land, it all created this crushing anxiety. This wasn't just an attack on buildings, it was an assault on the entire nation's sense of well-being. What happened on June 13th really hammers home just how volatile this part of the world is. If you want to get your head around how complex this all is, and what might happen next, it's so important to get information from good, reliable sources. If you're finding this breakdown helpful, maybe consider subscribing to our channel and giving this video a like. Your support honestly helps us keep bringing you these in-depth looks at critical global events. Global repercussions. The world reacts to this attack on Tel Aviv and Jerusalem didn't just stay in the Middle East, it sent shockwaves everywhere. World leaders immediately started condemning it and calling for everyone to calm down. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres basically pleaded for maximum restraint to stop things from spiraling into an even bigger war. He was especially worried about any military moves that could just wreck regional stability. The UN Security Council even held an emergency meeting, which Iran asked for, and Russia and China backed that request. That alone tells you a lot about the deep global divisions this crisis has laid bare. Now, the US confirmed its forces helped shoot down some Iranian missiles, but they were also quick to say they had nothing to do with Israel's first strikes on Iran. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and that's a fictional placeholder based on who might be in office, stressed that Israel acted on its own. He said Washington's main goal was to protect American troops in the area, but also warned Iran not to even think about targeting US interests. Over in Europe, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas urged everyone to exercise restraint, saying diplomacy was still the best way out. Even regional players like the UAE condemned the attacks and called for de-escalation, pushing for diplomatic solutions. And the financial markets? Well, they did what they always do in a crisis, got very jumpy, with big worries about oil prices and the global economy. There's no doubt this attack has pushed the Middle East into an even more dangerous and unpredictable situation. What next? Escalation or de-escalation? So, missiles have hit two of Israel's biggest cities. What now? Israel is under huge pressure to hit back. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had already warned that operations against Iran's military and nuclear sites would go on as long as needed. And Defense Minister Israel Katz saw Iran crossed a red line by hitting civilian areas. So the big questions are, how big and how bad will Israel's response be? Will they go for pinpoint strikes to try and take out more of Iran's missile and nuclear stuff? Or will it be something much bigger, risking an even worse cycle of violence? The rest of the world is practically begging for caution. Nobody wants a full-blown regional war that could pull in other countries and lead to a humanitarian and economic disaster. Iran, on the other hand, has promised to hit back even harder if Israel retaliates again. The new IRGC chief, Mohammad Pakpour, even threatened to open the gates of hell on Israel. What the major powers do next, especially the United States, is going to be absolutely crucial in the coming days and weeks. Can diplomacy actually cool things down? Or is the region just stuck on a path to a much bigger war? The scary part is, one wrong move on either side could be disastrous. The whole world is watching, pretty much holding its breath, as the Middle East stands on a knife edge. A region on the brink. That night, June 13, 2025, it really changed everything for the Israeli-Iranian conflict. Iran's Operation True Promise 3, those direct missile attacks on Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, completely shattered any idea that this fight was just happening in the shadows or through other groups. Now, it's out in the open, a direct fight with terrible consequences already, and the scary thought of it getting much, much worse. Right now, it's about figuring out the damage, mourning those lost, and helping the injured. But after that? We're looking at a whole lot of uncertainty. What Tehran and Jerusalem decide to do in the next few hours and days will decide if this blows up into a massive regional war, and that would affect way more than just the Middle East. The missiles might have stopped for the moment, but this conflict? It's nowhere near over. Things are moving fast with this. If you want to keep up with the latest updates and get more analysis on this critical story as it develops, make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications on. We'd also really like to hear your thoughts. What do you think needs to happen to de-escalate this crisis? Share your ideas respectfully in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and please, stay informed.